Welcome ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews, and today we're going to be taking a look at Guild Commander. This was created by GTGD, available for PC. It is a simulation of controlling a guild and sending out heroes, but it feels more like a time management, a happy dream of an accountant. I found it fairly boring, and I'll explain why. And we'll begin in the settings. Now, I am actually quite satisfied with the amount of effort put into the settings. You do have a large variable of screen resolutions, and while the graphic quality of the game is very simplistic, they do have a choice on that regard. The graphics are not anything amazing, but then again, there's not a lot going on in the game, which visually needs to really stimulate the player, unfortunately as well. You have sound, which is broken up on different volume sliders, and the music does help propel an atmosphere through the game, and that's really nice to see. As well as controls. So this game had a lot more in the options menu than I expected, as I did not expect to see actual rebindable keys, so that is something. The game is running smoothly with no tearing, clipping, or crashing, and I have not had any issues in that regard. Now when we begin, the game has a large variable of options to help you understand how to actually play the game. When we begin in a new game, you do have a choice between 3 different difficulties, which increase the enemy and quickness of the enemies in the taking over of certain territories. And there are a large variable of different tutorials throughout the game, which will sort of help you understand exactly how to maximize. Now before we get really underway, the first thing I'm going to show you is really just the base of the interface, because this game is basically all interface. You have a keep, and we have a bar here which allows us to do this stuff. We can hide the interface completely so you can see the entire guild that you have. Now all these guild rooms have the availability to build buildings which restore certain stats for your heroes. So if we build, say, a kitchen, it's going to replenish health of any hero who's in this location. The guild hall is pretty large, as you can see, and it means that it's about money management, because the larger and more heroes that you store into your guild, the faster you're going to want them to replenish so they can go back out onto missions, and the more rooms you have set up to allow that will definitely help in that regard, as well as there's something called quality. Now quality, as you can see here, room target quality. Room target quality basically says this is the level of effort and speed that we're going to progress. So for a lower room, like if I have 2 to 10, you can get by on a red quality standard. If you have 50 or so, some such really high number of heroes in your guild, you're going to want to have a higher quality of rooms. That way you can get in and out and your heroes can feel more replenished faster. This is a really good idea, and I like the fact that they have this room target quality which will apply to every single room in the entire game. The annoying aspect is how the room quality is tied to your gold. Now if we look at the top right point, the game does have a time system, which is perfectly fine. You have week, hour, and days, and the gold you have. Now you gain gold by sending out your heroes, as you can see on the bottom of the page. These heroes you send out to different locations, Knight's Home, Knight's Haven, Living Isle, as you can see, and they will fight the enemy, do hero-y stuff, and while they're doing that, they'll be giving you a tie of money. So every second that they're out there, so we'll send this guy to King's Home, and we deploy him. If we unpause it briefly, you can see that days until return 14, daily contribution 23, gold earned daily 30. So I'll be gaining gold from him. Now, that's not a base number. The more safe the area is, if there's no special event going on in a zone, and the longer they're there, the less money they'll gain and bring back to you, as well as the more heroes you put into an area, the less money that'll be given back to you. The issue that arises with this regard is the gold itself. Now, gold is spent quite rapidly by how much rooms you have available. And it makes sense in regard to, hey, if I have a really high amount of heroes, then sending them out and getting them back in is going to sort of balance it out. But the annoying aspect is the fact that the money, whether you have people in your guild hall or out on a mission, the money continues to drop. Now, it also takes money to deploy them, which is a little odd, but I get it. It's a money waster. It's a money dump, as heroes will come in and it's very easy to just sign them up. You don't lose any money signing new heroes into your guild. They don't really do anything or have any interaction within the guild. They might stay in a certain room if they need to renew one of their stats, but as you can see, if we send them to the frontier, it's going to cost nearly 400 gold. So the important aspect is to send them to lower end missions or safer zones first, because it will cost less and it'll bring in more money. As you can see, our gold is going up and now it's going down because of the variation. As I said earlier, gold earned daily is now 9. The longer they get out into battle, the less money they actually have. Weekly reports, which just kind of tell you how you're going, but these become more annoying than helpful, as due to how fast the time in the game actually passes by. So these actually bombard you with information. It should have been maybe every 2 or 3 weeks reports, or quarterly or something. Now we'll pause the game again, because I know this might be a lot of information to go over. So you have your heroes, and your heroes go out to zones, and that's how you earn money. When they come back, their stats will be injured, as you can see in these areas. That's why you need certain rooms. These rooms will replenish the stats of your heroes. The downside is, no matter whether you have heroes out in the field or in the guild hall, your money is continuously being run down because of the rooms you have. There is not a resource management. It's not like you have 50 food and every hero that comes in takes 5 food and it's going to cost you 100 gold to replenish that 5 food. There is no money management or really base management of that regard, and that right there is where this game fails horribly. It skips over the base management, which means that you have to do absolutely nothing other than just watch your men come in and go out, in and go out. So it gets very boring and very dull as more heroes continuously come in, you sign them up, and you send them out. Now, there is a balance between how many heroes you have early on versus how many you want to send out, because you don't want to end up having too many and not having the money to really support or sustain such a large number, because you won't have the resources needed, because you don't have the rooms to restock everybody's stats. And when you send them out, they'll get injured and you come back, they won't be all injured. You'll lose money continuously. Like I said, it's not a resource area, so you'll continuously lose money even if nobody's in your base, which means that it's not about base management. It's about getting them out of your base as fast as possible so they don't bankrupt you, and keeping the quality of the rooms low. It's rather poorly done. Now, you do have in the top left the zone breakdown. The calamity are sort of zone events. They can be very weak, normal, or hard, or extreme, depending on randomization of your difficulty and the game itself. And you have security in these different zones. The security allows construction via heroes deployed into that area. Once you get the top, then you have the availability to open a sort of trade guild, which will give you more money, continuing the cycle. But when a calamity does happen in this area, it will destroy so much of your security. So you could be at 900 security, been really trying to get that to max, and then all of a sudden, a zone happens and you lose 400. So you lose a half-hour progress in 2 seconds. The game basically breaks down to this. The heroes will go out on missions to the zones that you prescribe them to. When they come back, they'll rest up, and you'll need to make sure that they have the proper resources to actually replenish their stats, whether it be energy, health, yada yada. Once they have replenished their abilities, then you send them back out into the field. Now, the quality will depend on how fast these abilities recharge, but it also takes more money. You have to keep that in mind as well. Now you'd think, okay, my heroes, they don't really do anything with base, they take up resources, money continuously spawns, there's no base management, so it has to be on the heroes. There has to be some sort of really in-depth intrinsic value to these heroes that make it exciting when they're away. And the sad thing is, there's not. It is literally a numbers game. You have heroes in, you have heroes out. And that one just brought in an item. So we'll look at the item that he brought back with him. And it's a fair awareness prism. Now there is gear that they can bring back which will increase, but the thing is, the gear doesn't actually increase really stats. There is not a area of where, hey, why don't we increase base stats and it really makes a difference in their zone or area. You don't really see an impact for your heroes into the different zones, because when you go away, it's just a number. If I deploy these troops back out, it doesn't actually matter. They just become a number back on the board in the top left, deployed. So they might add in security or other regards, and while there is different types of gear that you have the availability to make if you have a blacksmith, and the different quality of blacksmith that you have, as we talked about, the different rooms offering different quality of gear, comes down to how much money it's sapping from you. Now, if I want him to make a shield, say, and I want to give it to my soldier, it's not going to really increase his availability or how much health he has or how much gold he brings back or how faster the security of the different areas. These have more like set bonuses: good morale, strength bonus, awareness bonus, health bonus. As you can see, the different weapons, armor, and whatnot just add equipment bonuses and stat bonuses, but not really an overall. You have no character in-depth availability. If you get a rogue, you're not like, oh, this rogue is going to be sneaky, he's going to do this and that, and you can feel an impact in the zone versus a soldier, which may take on more troops. You don't get that feeling. You don't have a real in-depth value of the individualization of these different characters. There is no personalization, and so it leaves it to like, yeah, I can eventually make these weapons, I can eventually outfit my troops, and they may be more helpful. A higher awareness may be helpful against a certain calamity. A higher morale may be helpful fighting off a zombie horde. But they don't really impact the different characters that you have themselves. You don't feel like, oh wow, my soldier's really becoming stronger, he's becoming a leader, he's teaching others, he's growing into something that I can be proud of and really aspire to. As well as the fact that I've never lost any of these heroes. I don't know if it's even possible. Maybe I've just been lucky or whatnot, but I've never lost any of my characters, and I've put them in situations where they look like they're going to die. They have next to no health, but they always come back. So I don't even know if you can lose these characters by being careless or some regard, as there is no way to cancel and call them back. So if their health and stats are getting too low, there is not a way of being like, hey, get out of there, come back to a base in some regard. So there's really no management into understanding what your troops do in the zones, overwatching what they do, having any status report upon the actions that they take, and the characters themselves are very low base. Now, does some of the buildings that you have availability to build make a little bit of a difference? Tiny. You do have the availability to train. If you have certain buildings in your guild hall, strength, awareness, knowledge, and morale will become open up to you, and you can buy bonuses which will give, as here, a small knowledge bonus, and it costs money as you can see, but it's the sort of small passive increase and really the only one that you have to make your characters feel a little bit stronger overall. The lore book upon what's going on, local guilds for each area, if you put money into it, it's supposed to help your security and the regional stability of that area, but I've not really seen that work out well for me in my longer Express games. And the trade guilds, as once you establish a guild, you have how much money you'll gain, how much it'll cost, the area, what's going on. It's really unnecessary to have that trade guild because it's exactly the same thing as you see in the top left. So at the end of the day, what does this game have? Well, it really doesn't have anything. It's quite boring. The continuation repetitiveness of what's going on is just really not entertaining. And if you do run out of money, you will lose, which is understandable. If you go negative, you have a certain amount of days before you go bankrupt, which is cool, that's fine, I don't mind that. But it's the fact that it's just a money management game more than anything else, but you lose so much money continuously rather than having some sort of upgrade station or really anything else. It really does feel like the game didn't try to have any depth to it. It would have really been nice if, like, when your rogue comes back and his gear is all damaged, he goes to a blacksmith. And then because he's part of your guild, you lose money based off of what he needs done. Maybe he wants to upgrade. Well, you're going to have to buy to make weapons and produce that for him, and money dumps. It's not about having some sort of organization and really pressing out and being like, oh wow, I've got a huge guild, I've got people that are happy, different morale structures, different powers and gears, I feel powerful in the zones, having actually influence, I can feel my troops rising and my guild growing, and there's heroes walking around my guild hall and they're using different supplies and variables and something. Just something. I mean, I can't come up with an entire game's worth of improvises, but that's what I feel this game needs because it has nothing. It is a time management game that really has no depth, gets excessively boring. It's the type of game that if you just wake up, have coffee, and you're like, alright, let's sit down and play this game, a half hour, 20 minutes, an hour, you want to go back to bed because it's so boring and so tiring and so just blah. It doesn't offer a challenge. There is no, well, what do I do? The most there is, oh, I'm going to deploy you. Oh, I'm going to deploy you. Hey, welcome back. Now you're back up. I'm going to deploy you. It's not fun, it's boring, because it doesn't have anything in the game that actually makes it interesting. You sit around, you literally sit around, spending all of your time waiting for your heroes to come back, then when they come back, you wait again for their stats to go up, then you send them back out, which means you're waiting again. The game is boring. I really like the idea of it, but what they end up doing is just bad. So I cannot recommend this game because it doesn't actually involve you into the actual game. It's more like a, here, watch this. Okay, wow, fascinating. So ladies and gentlemen, I've been SocioPsycho, and this has been Mob Reviews, and I thank you for watching, and I hope this has been of help, and I'll see you next time.